and welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. And this is the player ratings video for Everton's nil-nil draw away at Arsenal, which came as I think, a pleasant surprise to most of us. I just recorded an instant reaction video to the match, which you'll be able to check out on the Toffee Blues channel. It gives a bit more of my in-depth thoughts on the game as a whole, rather than going through the individual performances like I'm about to now. But yeah, like I say, it was I thought it was a real typical Dyche performance. I'd say I think the defensive solidity that we saw last season, I thought was back in heap loads in particular in this game. And I think there's been encouraging signs in the last few weeks that we look a lot more solid defensively, but this has definitely been the best case for that, I'd say, definitely. And we really restricted Arsenal in their chance creation and made life very difficult for them. So yeah, a really a valuable point, I'd say, definitely in the obviously in the bid to stay in the Premier League once again. So I'd say heading straight into the individual performances, starting of course with Jordan Pickford in goal. Another fantastic game from him. Obviously there were a few little criticisms towards him at the start of the season, saying he wasn't the performance level wasn't quite as high as it has been in previous seasons. But the last few weeks he's looked as good as he ever has, I'd say. And didn't have a ton to do today, not as much as you'd maybe expect in a game like this. But whenever he did need to be called into action, he was reliable as ever. Made a fantastic save in particular at the start of the second half from Bukayo Saka, right into the bottom corner, but was equal to it. And yeah, like I say, a real leader from the back as ever. I think really, I think his ability to marshal the defence and give the instructions effectively is is a lot more important than maybe people realise. So yeah, another top performance from Jordan Pickford, and yeah, I think a well-deserved 8 out of 10 for him. Moving on to the defence, who I thought all had really good games today. Obviously, kind of had to really against a side like Arsenal at the Emirates, having almost all the possession, to keep a clean sheet. Everyone really had to be on it, and Ashley Young's someone I think we'd all admit has been a real revelation this season, and has surprised many with just how consistently solid he's been for us, and today was no exception. I think there was maybe a few times early on where he seemed to be getting caught out like a bit too high at the pitch, and Martinelli was being afforded far too much space on the left. I'm not sure if that was a tactical reason, but it was something that seemed to be tweaked and didn't really happen again for the rest of for the rest of the game. And in the end, I think Young kept Martinelli very quiet indeed. Um, and yeah, was pretty much faultless really after that point. And yeah, and another fantastic performance here. And again, that professional head I think probably really helps. Having that experience at the back. Him and Tarkowski. I think really helps us. I think when we're up against it, backs against the wall, just like we were today. So yeah, a 7 for Ashley Young. And then speaking of Tarkowski, I thought that was possibly the best game he's had for us. One of the best games I've seen, definitely from him in an Everton shirt. I thought he was absolutely outstanding. Just a brick wall, blocked absolutely everything that Arsenal had to throw at us. Won some really good tackles. Won absolutely every header. And again, like Pickford and Young, I thought was just a true leader and really led the defence well and helped us gain a really important point. So definitely my man of the match, and I'd go as far as to say a 9 out of 10 performance, almost faultless. Um, and yeah, I don't think I've given many 9 out of 10s when doing these videos over the last few years. So yeah, that I think goes a long way to show just how well I thought Tarkowski played today. Again, another one who was coming in for a bit of criticism at the start of the season, didn't quite seem fully fit, but last few weeks I think he's been fantastic in pretty much every game. And yeah, today was almost certainly his best performance so far of the season. So he's looking back to his best. Someone who I don't think is quite looking back to his best yet, is Tarkowski's defensive partner, Jarrad Brantford. Still doesn't quite seem like the races to me. There seems to be times during the games where he's holding his hamstring, and it suggests to me that I don't think he's fully fit yet, and it's kind of a case of needs must. Um, Obviously, Michael Keane started most of the games at the start of the season and did pretty well, to be fair. But he's also been having issues with his fitness in recent weeks. Was back on the bench today, but I guess if it's a toss up between um, a slightly injured Brantford and a slightly injured Michael Keane, you're choosing Brantford every day, aren't you? And there was still, don't get me wrong, there was still some very important interceptions he made, and it was mostly just in possession stuff, I think, that let him down a bit today. A few sloppy passes, but you know, there's still signs there that I think there's a real quality player in there, and hopefully, if he keeps playing more games, his fitness will come back and he'll be back to his best. And it's got to be said as well. I think he gives us really good defensive structure as well because he's able to push up effectively and try and nick the balls high at the pitch. And then if it doesn't work, he's able to drop back in because he's got the athleticism that someone like Tarkowski or Michael Keane just doesn't really have. And I think that was catching us out quite a bit at the start of the season because we're still trying to play that way. But Bramthwaite's able to do that role effectively even now, even when he's not quite in tip-top form. So I think that's very important for us. So I'd give Bramthwaite a 6. I wouldn't say it was a catastrophic performance from him, but obviously in keeping a clean sheet against Arsenal, as I said, everyone kind of had to be on it. There was no real bad performances today, I wouldn't say. So yeah, a 6 for Jarrad Brantford. And then Vitaly Mykolenko, again, another one who has kind of been a bit of the scapegoat, I'd say, in the last few weeks. He's had an up and down time at Everton, hasn't he? There's been, when he first came in for the first few weeks, he looked okay. Then there were times, in the full season under Lampard where he looked very poor and out of sorts. It kind of turned out he wasn't at all fit at that time either. Then last season, I'd argue he was probably one of our better players. I thought there was a time where he was putting in, solid 8 out of 10 performances, I'd argue. Week in, week out. And again, this season it's not quite been the same. Again, there's been a few little niggly injuries over the summer, which I don't think have helped. But I thought today was one of the better games he's had for a while. And it was the sort of game that suits him really. When we're backs to the wall, I think it's when we're a bit more on the front foot and trying to get forward a bit more that he maybe gets caught out a little bit more and gets a little bit more isolated and. Um, his lack of offensive threat kind of costs us a little bit, and it leaves out and Die a bit isolated on the left hand side as well. But obviously today there wasn't really too much call for that, so I think it showed in his performance, and I think there was still, don't get me wrong, there was still a few times where Saka kind of had him, but it's Bukayo Saka, always plays well against us in particular, and is one of the best players in his position in the world, I'd argue. So. But the fact is, he was kept quiet for most of the game, and when he did manage to wriggle free, he wasn't able to create anything too effective for Arsenal, was he? So I think that definitely goes down as a win for Mykolenko in that battle, and therefore I'd give the Ukrainian a 7. I think. Moving on to the midfield, Jack Harrison. Again, it wasn't really a game for him where he could have too much of an impact. Was pretty ineffective overall, wasn't he? Always works hard, always chases the ball when he needs to, and keeps that pressure on the Arsenal defence, trying to force the mistake that never really came today, did it? Um, but yeah, like I say, it wasn't really his game, was it? And can't really give him any higher or lower than a an average 6, I'd say. Yeah, not really got too much to say about Jack Harrison. It's got to be said. Um, Whereas Mangala and Idrissa Gueye, I'd probably kind of do together. Really, I thought in the middle of the park, up against the likes of Martin Ødegaard and Moreno and Declan Rice, I thought they were really, really solid. Mangala is such an intelligent player, isn't he? I think that sort of intelligence we've really lacked, and he's just a calm head. He doesn't do anything too flash like most of the time, but has that really, I think, effective role that just kind of goes under the radar a little bit. But if you pay attention to him, you realise that he's one of the most important players for us at the moment. I'd say I've been really impressed with him, and hopefully with Leon's financial situation, he's one that we can maybe look to get in on a permanent basis going forward because I really think we could do with a player like him. And similarly, Idrissa Gueye, it really worries me about how we're going to replace him one day because again, just so important to how he plays, absolutely integral. Just works his socks off, wins all the loose balls, um, and he leads the charge a lot of the time, because he's a lot more athletic than Mangala is, isn't he? And I'd say he's probably more composed on the ball than someone like the Doucouré is. So it's usually him leading us out of play, getting the balls up to Calvert-Lewin, um, and just giving the Everton players a bit of a breather, really, and allowing us to recover and regroup. And yeah, I think he's going to be so hard to replace when it comes to it. 35 years old now, but still one of our best and most important players. So yeah, I'd give the pair of them a seven. I'd say. I thought they both had really solid games and played a big hand in us getting a valuable clean sheet. And then in Dye on the left, similar to Harrison, really. I think, he probably had a bit more of an impact. There were a few, good runs he made, that again kind of alleviated the pressure on us a little bit and got us up further up the pitch. Um, and, managed to draw a couple of fouls here and there. But again, like I say, it was like similarly to Harrison, really. It just wasn't really his game, was it? We weren't doing much in wide areas. Um, and yeah, he just wasn't really quite as involved as he probably would have liked, I'd say. So yeah, it wasn't really in Dye's game either. So yeah, probably just a standard six for him as well. And then Doucouré, again, another one that I know will divide opinion, but I think getting him back in behind the striker is a really good decision from Dyche in the last few games. I think it showed against Wolves. I think it showed here today as well. He's able to drop in and do the defensive work and the gritty work. But if we are launching a counter attack, he's almost always in the right position. And the frustrating thing, of course, is that when he does get the ball, um, never seems to do too much with it. He seems to always make the wrong decision and just doesn't quite have that cutting edge that we really need, and gives the ball away too often. Probably should have scored, or at least done a lot better with that chance he had early on, which was pretty much the only chance we had all game when you think about it. When he got played in, took too long to get the shot away on his weaker left foot, probably a bit too far over to the side. Would have done well to score it, to be fair, but should have at least got the shot on target. But Gabriel was able to get back and block it behind, and yeah, that was pretty much the only joy we really had going forward, I'd say. But like I say, I think what Doucouré gives us structurally means he has to be in that 10 for the foreseeable, I'd argue. Again, there might be people that disagree with me on that one, so yeah, give your thoughts on Doucouré below in the comments, absolutely. And then finally, Calvert-Lewin, again, another one, a polarizing figure at Everton, but I don't think anyone can argue that he did give his all today. And, it's one of those games for a striker that must be immensely frustrating. There's no real, very, like, just scraps to feed off, basically. Um, no real chances to attack the goal or get on the end of a cross or a through ball or anything like that, really. It was just working the channels, trying to win the ball off the defenders, winning the ball in the air, and just trying to keep hold of it for us, really, and potentially get a counter attack going. But it was mostly just to give our players a bit of respite, wasn't it? But I thought he did it so well for us today, and better than he has done in a long time, really. So full credit to Calvert-Lewin, really. Thought he was quite unlucky to be taken off, really. I don't know if it was more of a fitness consideration more than anything, or a chance to give Broja some more minutes. But I thought that was one of Cavalierin's better performances for us for a while, really. And you know, he had a pretty good game against Wolves. Was unlucky not to have two goals to his name, really. Obviously, they both went down as Craig Dawson own goals, but maybe he's just getting a bit of confidence flowing back for him, and can hopefully kick on if this is indeed to be his last season as an Everton player. Uh, And then yeah, not really going to go into the subs. I don't think there's really too much to be said about either of them. Uh, Brozier and Lindstrom didn't have too much of an impact. I thought Lindstrom defended quite well, to be honest, a bit better than he has done in recent weeks. Won a few crucial tackle for us in tight areas, and Brozier worked the lines and the channels pretty well, but uh, yeah, like I say, wasn't really much time and wasn't really the sort of game for either of them to have too much of an impact. So but yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up my thoughts on that. Please comment below giving your ratings and your thoughts on what I'd argue was a very unexpected 0-0 draw for us and a very valuable point. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the Toffee Blues channel for more Everton content, and we will see you in the next video. Up the Toffees.